Usually, when we talk about getting a medical diagnosis, there's this like expectation of complete clinical precision. You know, you break your arm, the X-ray shows that jagged white line on the black film, and the doctor just points and says, "Yep, there it is. That's the problem. It's totally visible."
Yeah, it's categorized, right. And that gives us a sense of control. Like we can clearly see the mechanism that failed, which means we can theoretically apply a direct fix. You just put it in a cast, let the bone knit, and the system functions again.
Exactly. But if you step into the modern job market, that X-ray machine is just totally broken. I mean, we are looking at this global economic landscape where the fractures are everywhere, but they don't show up on a neat little scan.
Right, it's just a mess.
It really is. You have brilliant people who are unemployed. You've got companies with massive capital that somehow can't innovate, and everyone is just, wandering around in this murky diagnostic fog.
And it is a structural bottleneck that traditional economics really struggles to even quantify, let alone cure. I mean, we rely on these massive data aggregators to find jobs or, fund projects, but the friction in the system is just palpable. You can feel it.
You absolutely can. So today on Ponder Inc., we are exploring a blueprint that claims to fix that entire machine. And welcome to the show, by the way. We're so glad you're joining us.
Yes, welcome. We've got a lot to cover today.
We really do. So if you were with us recently, we already did one podcast episode about one YouTube video from Cord Schnackenberg. And for those keeping track at home, that's pronounced Cord Schnackenberg.
Right. And that initial video was called The Fastest Overview of the BrickBox Studio. And it specifically noted it was before it was Holy LLC.
Exactly. And honestly, after we wrapped that session, we realized we had barely even scratched the surface of this guy's architecture. I mean, we were both just choosing to start a series of podcast episodes because we ended up discovering another YouTube video from Cord.
Yeah, it was titled The First Vision Cast of the BrickBox Studio. And based on the context, we know this was made somewhere between August 2019 and April 2022.
And the sheer scale of the system he was proposing in these videos made it immediately apparent that a single analysis just wouldn't do justice to the underlying mechanics. I mean, we are both just amazed by the vision here. It wasn't just a pitch for a startup, it was a literal thesis on reorganizing human capital.
Yeah, it really was. I'm still floored by it, to be honest. If that first video was a map, this second video is the entire, molecular level architectural blueprint.
Right. He isn't just tweaking the current economy. He is outlining an entirely new global economic ecosystem, an alternative industry that he calls a spark beacon.
And the contrast between the scale of his vision and the actual setting of his pitch is so striking. We aren't analyzing a presentation given in some million-dollar boardroom in Silicon Valley.
No, not at all. There are no slick pitch decks or venture capitalists taking notes in the background.
Exactly. Cord is recording this video while visibly exhausted. I mean, he's sitting in a room with his young daughter, Zoe, who, occasionally interrupts to play with a clock or ask for a snack.
It's so real. And he's literally watching the clock himself. He repeatedly mentions that he is dreading this upcoming 9-hour shift at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, he has to put on a fast food uniform in an hour. And before he does, he's just desperately trying to articulate this massive system designed to completely dismantle the economic realities that have him trapped in that exact situation.
He kind of weaponizes his own frustration, doesn't he?
He really does. He explicitly uses his current life as the primary proof of concept. He considers himself a living case study, he's this visionary who possesses massive ideas and actionable blueprints, but he's completely structurally stuck.
Right, and he extrapolates that personal bottleneck to millions of people worldwide who are in the exact same boat. I mean, if you're listening to this and you've ever felt stuck in a dead-end job or you have a great idea but no funding, you know exactly what he's talking about.
He calls it the tragic hoarding of wasted potential. And this is really where his X-ray of the economy starts to come into focus.
Yeah, he argues that the world is overflowing with talented people, right, potential employees, and great companies with amazing ideas, which are the potential employers.
But they are completely severed from one another.
Exactly. You have people putting out hundreds of applications, taking on massive college debt, building incredible portfolios just to get an automated email back from a no-reply address saying...
Sorry, we went with someone more qualified.
Yes, it's soul-crushing.
Which forces us to really examine the tools we currently use to bridge that gap. I mean, if the talent exists and the capital exists, why is the connection failing so badly?
It's like a master chef starving to death inside their own fully stocked kitchen just because they can't figure out how to turn on the stove.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks. I mean, we have the ingredients. We have the internet, for crying out loud. We have Google. We have LinkedIn. We have Indeed.
But as Cord so sharply points out, these platforms provide information, not actual connections.
That distinction is the bedrock of his entire thesis. Because if search engines and professional networking sites were true connectors, the friction would disappear. Talented people wouldn't be submitting resumes into a total void.
Right. Cord argues that the underlying algorithms of current economic models are fundamentally misaligned with human progress. I mean, they are based on hoarding and monetizing data.
So true. A platform like LinkedIn or a massive job board isn't financially incentivized to instantly find you your dream job and remove you from the platform.
Exactly. They are incentivized to keep you searching and clicking and applying and scrolling so they can serve you more ads or, sell you premium subscription tiers.
They monetize the search, not the solution. And Cord's alternative to this is a concept he brings up constantly throughout this deep dive material: mutual fulfillment.
Mutual fulfillment. It is the absolute core of the sparkbeacon ecosystem. It is this uncompromising mandate for a true win-win scenario.
Because in traditional economics, transactions are often zero-sum, right? Or at least heavily skewed to benefit the party with more leverage.
Yeah, exactly. But mutual fulfillment dictates that one side has a specific defined need and the other side has the exact corresponding asset or talent to offer.
So the platform's only goal is to facilitate that perfect pairing so that both entities are permanently elevated by the transaction.
He's aiming to bypass the traditional gatekeepers entirely. But, to build an economy based on mutual fulfillment, you can't just throw up a website.
Right. You need an ironclad corporate structure. Which brings us to the actual architecture of how he plans to govern this, starting at the very top with the parent company.
So the top-level administrative umbrella was originally registered as an LLC in Missouri back in 2013. In the videos, he refers to it as the BrickBox Studio, though he notes it was later renamed to Holy LLC.
And this entity basically serves as the centralized nervous system overseeing the diverse branches of the sparkbeacon. But we have to talk about the name BrickBox Studio because it isn't some, focus-grouped corporate branding.
No, not at all. He traces the name back to a deeply personal moment. It was an idea he had while praying in the dark in the Black Box Theater at Aurora High School in Missouri back in 2010.
It's a really profound, almost poetic, theological metaphor. Let's unpack the mechanics of that, starting with the brick.
Okay, so Cord relies heavily on biblical symbolism here. Water represents the Holy Spirit, and dirt represents humanity, which is referencing the creation narrative of God forming man from the dust of the earth.
Right, and when you mix water and dirt, you get clay, which signifies a human being who is moldable, responsive, and obedient to their creator.
But clay is fragile. You can't build a skyscraper out of wet mud.
Which is where the fire becomes essential. The fire represents trials, hardships, and the refining power of the spirit.
Yeah, Cord views his exhausting 9-hour shifts at Chick-fil-A not just as economic traps, but as the fire. And when the clay endures the fire, it solidifies. It becomes a brick.
A mature, tested, structurally sound individual who won't just crumble under the weight of responsibility. I love that. So then we move to the box. Why a box? Why not a pyramid, which is, the standard corporate hierarchy?
A box is geometrically fascinating in this context because it is a structure that is equally dependent on all its sides for integrity. If one panel of a box is removed, the entire structure loses its capacity to hold anything.
Oh, wow.
Right. For Cord, the box symbolizes unity, mutual dependence, and non-hierarchical support among believers. These refined bricks aren't meant to just sit alone in a field. They are meant to be assembled upon a single, unshakable foundation.
Which he identifies as the cornerstone, representing Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
And finishing out the name, Studio. This directly ties to the biblical passage of Ephesians 2:10, which states that humans are God's workmanship.
We are the masterpiece meant to create good works.
So when you fuse those three concepts, the BrickBox Studio is a unified, interdependent structure of refined individuals working collaboratively to create incredible things.
It's a deep theological foundation, and it drives a highly specific and potentially controversial leadership philosophy.
Right, because Cord insists that the core administration of the BrickBox Studio must be strictly and exclusively Christian. He cites 2 Corinthians 6.14, warning against being unequally yoked with unbelievers.
Yeah, that's a huge point for him.
Well, wait, let me stop you there, because I know you're listening to this and thinking the same thing. He's building this global, world-changing economic platform designed to bypass Silicon Valley gatekeepers and connect millions of people, but he's restricting the top-level leadership to exclusively Christians.
It does seem counterintuitive at first glance.
Doesn't that immediately put a ceiling on this? It sounds like he's building a walled garden that inherently alienates the rest of the world.
It's absolutely the most obvious critique of his model. But Cord anticipates this, and he navigates it with a structural division that kind of mirrors open source software development.
Okay, how so?
He argues that having non-believers at the core administrative level would inevitably result in mission drift. I mean, think about it. If half your board is purely secular, driven by maximizing shareholder value or capturing market share, and the other half is driven by this strict kingdom-building mutual fulfillment mandate.
The organization will just rip itself apart.
Exactly. You wouldn't have a shared enforceable standard of ultimate authority to resolve fundamental disputes over ethics or direction.
So the exclusive core is essentially a firewall. It's there to protect the algorithmic integrity of the system.
Precisely. The BrickBox Studio parent company and its Pacific Ministry arm, Kingdom Connection, are strictly for believers. However, the outward-facing economic engines that actually generate the value, specifically platforms like KaleidaCloud and Golden Sounds, are completely open to the public.
Right. Cord explicitly states that even if you are a staunch atheist, you can and absolutely should utilize the network.
The administration guards the philosophical vision, but the platform serves the global public.
It's an acknowledgement that the economic benefits of mutual fulfillment shouldn't be restricted by personal belief systems, which is brilliant.
It really is. And that perfectly transitions us into examining the primary engine of this entire ecosystem, the platform meant to execute this vision on a global scale.
KaleidaCloud.
KaleidaCloud, spelled with an I in the middle, pronounced KaleidaCloud.
This is his answer to Google, LinkedIn, Fiverr, and Indeed, all rolled into one massive digital networking platform. But instead of just giving you a blank search bar, KaleidaCloud categorizes its entire user base into a highly specific, color-coded structure.
It's an attempt to categorize human economic utility without reducing people to mere data points.
Yeah.
Every user on the platform falls into one or more of these 7 colors.
And understanding the friction and synergy between these colors is the key to the whole system. So let's break down this kaleidoscope. Let's start with red.
Okay. Red represents positions and payroll. These are the individuals actively looking for full-time or part-time employment.
So they bring raw talent, passion, and time to the table. And what they need in return is a role that fits their specific skill set, alongside fair income and stable benefits.
Exactly. Then you have orange, representing freelancers. But Cord isn't just looking at them as isolated gig workers driving for Uber or doing one-off graphic design jobs.
No, he positions Orange as the agile connective tissue of the economy. They provide specialized services and immediate labor for short-term needs,
Which allows businesses to scale up or down without the massive commitment of red payroll. And in return, Orange users get the opportunity to continuously build out diverse portfolios.
Makes total sense. Now, yellow represents the creators, and you can tell from the source material that this category is deeply personal to Cord.
Oh, absolutely. Yellows are the visionaries, the inventors, the musicians, the startup founders. They possess the disruptive ideas and the creative drive.
But they are structurally bottlenecked because they desperately need funding, talent, and resources to pull those ideas out of their heads and into reality.
Which brings us to green the investors. And Cord offers a really insightful perspective here, I think.
Yeah, because we often assume that people with significant capital are entirely self-sufficient, right? Like they're just free of economic friction.
Exactly. But capital sitting in a bank account, losing value to inflation, is a massive problem for an investor. Greens need viable, exciting, properly vetted vehicles to place their seed money into.
So they need the yellows just as much as the yellows need them. It's true mutual dependence.
Right. Then we move to blue, which is fascinating. Blue represents asset monetizers.
Okay, what does that mean exactly in this context?
These are people or corporate entities holding unused physical or digital assets. It could be a vacant commercial property, a fleet of idle heavy equipment, unused enterprise software licenses.
Or like a dormant recording studio, or literally just an empty garage.
Yes, exactly. They need a mechanism to generate passive income from items that are otherwise just gathering dust and depreciating.
Got it. And then purple represents established businesses and organizations. These are entities that have already achieved product market fit, they have consistent cash flow.
But to avoid stagnation, they constantly need fresh red talent, agile orange services, and perhaps blue assets to scale their operations efficiently.
And finally, we have pink, the consumers. The everyday buyers who hold purchasing power and are actively looking for goods, services, and immersive experiences to spend their money on.
So the architectural genius of KaleidCloud is the realization that every single color-specific deficit is perfectly matched to another color's surplus.
But here's my confusion with that. I mean, if I'm a yellow creator, I probably have a million wild ideas. And if I'm a green investor, I have cash, but I really want to protect it. Matching us up requires way more nuance than just a keyword search for tech startup. I mean, how does the platform avoid pairing a high-risk, chaotic yellow founder with a conservative, low-risk green investor? That would just result in a nightmare for both of them.
And that is exactly why traditional search fails. It's where Cord deploys his secret weapon.
Ooh, tell us.
He proposes taking the deep compatibility matchmaking logic utilized by dating sites. He specifically references platforms like eHarmony, Match.com, and Coffee Meets Bagel.
Wait, really? Dating sites?
Yes, and applying that logic directly to job hunting and corporate project building.
That is wild. It's like eHarmony for venture capital and employment.
The logic is completely sound when you think about it. On current professional sites, we rely on static, passive profiles.
Yeah.
You post a polished resume, stuff it with SEO keywords, and simply hope a recruiter's Boolean search query happens to sweep you up.
Yeah, it relies entirely on superficial data matching, which is why people get hired and then quit 3 months later because the culture fit is terrible.
Exactly. But with a matchmaking algorithm at the helm, the platform actively interrogates the user. It asks deep psychological and cultural compatibility questions.
Oh, I see. It wants to know the microculture of the purple business. It assesses the working style and communication preferences of the red employee.
It gauges the exact risk tolerances and timeline expectations of the green investor. Instead of a hiring manager wading through 400 irrelevant resumes, the system actively pairs economic partners based on holistic compatibility.
So a yellow creator needing server space and seed capital is seamlessly introduced to a blue asset holder with idle servers and a green investor looking for tech exposure.
And maybe the orange freelancer designs the branding. Everyone provides exactly what they have. Everyone receives exactly what they need. Mutual fulfillment is achieved algorithmically.
It's so elegant, but there's a hard ethical boundary coded into this network, right? Cord specifically outlaws one type of connection on the platform.
Yes, pink to green.
Right. The algorithm will never connect consumers, which are pink, with investors, which are green, for the purpose of personal loans.
Cord views predatory payday loans, or the extraction of wealth through high-interest consumer debt, as a fundamental violation of mutual fulfillment.
Because facilitating a business loan for a yellow startup is generative. It builds something. But trapping a pink consumer in a debt cycle just to generate yield for a green investor is purely extractive.
And therefore, it is completely banned from the ecosystem.
I love that he thought of that safeguard. And, you know, that active matchmaking logic is actually a direct assault on the traditional gatekeepers. Because if the algorithm can successfully pair a red employee with a purple business based on deep compatibility, you suddenly don't need the massive lucrative industry of corporate recruiters.
Cord is fiercely critical of the traditional recruiting and crowdfunding industries. He views them as prime examples of economic deadweight loss.
Yeah, they position themselves as necessary bridges, but they operate on models that extract massive value from the very people they claim to help.
He goes after a specific recruiting firm called GPAC to illustrate this. Let's look at the actual math of their model because it is staggering.
It really is. Cord points out that a firm like GPAC will charge an employer a 30% fee to place a candidate.
Let's run a simulation of that friction just to make it clear. Imagine a highly qualified red candidate is looking for a salary of $100,000.
Okay.
Under the traditional model, if a purple business wants to hire that candidate through the recruiter, they don't just pay the $100,000. They have to write a check for an additional $30,000 directly to the recruiting firm as a bounty.
Which fundamentally warps the entire salary negotiation. That $30,000 doesn't just materialize out of thin air. The employer has a fixed budget.
Exactly.
So the purple business looks at the candidate and says, well, with the fee you cost us $130,000, we can't afford that.
So they either pass on a perfectly compatible candidate or they lowball the candidate, offering them maybe $75,000 just to absorb the recruiter's fee.
It's an inherently lose-lose-lose structure. The business loses capital that could have been invested in R&D or expansion. The candidate loses wages they rightfully earn based on their market value.
And as Cord astutely observes, even the individual recruiter is miserable.
Oh yeah, he talks about that.
He describes these recruiters spending all day making relentless cold calls, enduring constant rejection, because no sane hiring manager wants to pay a $30,000 ransom for an introduction that a smart algorithm could facilitate for a fraction of the cost.
It's just wild when you lay out the numbers like that. And that predatory extraction in recruiting is exactly what Cord sees happening in modern career accelerator programs, too. He spends significant time analyzing a startup called Pathrise.
Pathrise is a fascinating case study because Cord actually praises their underlying philosophy at first. They operate on what's called an income share agreement, or an ISA.
Right. Instead of charging a student tens of thousands of dollars up front for a boot camp or career training, which forces the student to take on massive debt with absolutely no guarantee of employment, Pathrise offers one-on-one mentorship, resume building, and industry training for zero upfront cost.
Which sounds incredibly aligned with mutual fulfillment. I mean, if the candidate doesn't get hired, the company doesn't get paid. The incentives are completely synchronized. They only win if you win.
On the surface, yes. But Cord is someone who reads the fine print. He digs into the Pathrise contract and discovers a fatal extractive flaw.
Yeah, this part is crazy. The agreement states that once you secure a job making over $40,000 a year, Pathrise takes 7% of your income for 24 months, capped at $12,000.
Which seems fair until you look closer.
Right. However, the exact legal phrasing stipulates that they take 7% of all earned income reported to the IRS.
That phrasing is a hidden trapdoor. Cord uses a hypothetical involving his friend Rafaela to explain the danger here.
Let's hear it.
Let's say Rafaela owns a few rental properties. Under the Pathrise contract, if they help her land a $60,000 tech job, they don't just take 7% of her tech salary. They take 7% of the rental income from her real estate properties.
Income streams they had absolutely zero hand in generating. It's an egregious overreach.
It's like hiring a personal trainer to help you prep for a marathon, and buried on page 12 of the contract is a clause stating they are entitled to 7% of your poker winnings for the next 2 years.
That's a perfect comparison. It is completely disconnected from the value they actually provided.
Furthermore, Cord notes that if you sign with them, but ultimately secure a job entirely through your own networking efforts without their assistance during that 2-year window, you still owe them the 7%.
At that point, the ISA model ceases to be mutually fulfilling and crosses the line into parasitic extraction.
So KaleidoCloud's goal is to adopt the positive aspects of the ISA framework, the expert mentorship, the perfectly aligned incentives, the total elimination of upfront financial barriers, while explicitly stripping out these predatory, all-encompassing clauses.
And if we look at how he wants to disrupt capital funding, we see the exact same philosophy applied to platforms like Kickstarter. Cord has been analyzing Kickstarter's model since 2010.
And his critique is devastatingly simple.
Kickstarter is brilliant at aggregating micro-investments, but it fundamentally fails the green investor. If a green user invests their hard-earned capital into a yellow creator's Kickstarter campaign, and that campaign explodes, eventually becoming a billion-dollar enterprise like Oculus VR did.
Well, what does the early backer get?
Right.
They get a commemorative t-shirt. Or maybe their name printed in the back of a manual. The value exchange is laughably skewed.
The creator absorbs all the risk capital from the crowd, uses it to build a massive asset, and retains 100% of the long-term equity and wealth generation. The people who actually funded the dream get a piece of cheap merchandise.
It's practically charity disguised as investment, so Cord's blueprint for KaleidoCloud remedies this by enforcing true equity and net income revenue sharing for crowdfunding.
The distinction between gross revenue and net income is critical here.
Absolutely. Explain why that matters so much.
If a platform demands a share of gross revenue, they are taking money off the top before the creator has even paid for manufacturing or shipping. That can easily bankrupt a fragile startup.
Right, because gross doesn't account for your actual costs.
By enforcing net income sharing, the platform protects the yellow creator. The expenses are covered first. But once the project becomes profitable, the green investors who took that terrifying initial risk are genuinely rewarded with a percentage of the actual profits.
It transforms a transaction based on charity into a transaction based on true economic partnership, which is just so much healthier.
It is. And this philosophy of equitable mathematical profit sharing flows perfectly into the next massive pillar of the BrickBox Studio ecosystem.
Oh man, this is my favorite part. We've talked about the networking platform, but Cord is also building an entirely new model for the entertainment industry. Enter Golden Sounds. spelled as one single word.
Golden Sounds is envisioned as the record label of the future. While it was still in the conceptual phase during the recording of the source material, Chord's architectural vision for it is heavily inspired by the golden era of Capitol Records.
He idolizes that old Capitol Records model where absolutely everything was handled in-house under one roof. The recording studios, the marketing teams, the physical distribution, the album art designers.
It was all one unified humming machine, rather than a fragmented web of outsourced contractors.
But Golden Sounds isn't merely a nostalgia play. It's an attempt to completely reinvent how humans consume and pay for art in a digital age.
It begins with a seemingly counterintuitive strategy, the rebirth of physical media. Chord argues that in an era where millions of songs are instantly available in a frictionless digital cloud, consumers are actually starving for immersive, tangible experiences.
It's so true. I mean, the baseline playback for Golden Sounds releases will still be highly accessible, right? Like a digital album priced at a flat, fair $10.
Right. But for fans who crave a deeper connection, the label will offer assemblage box sets.
I am utterly obsessed with the concept of these box sets. When you hear physical media today, you usually think of a cheap cardboard CD sleeve or a standard vinyl jacket.
Yeah, maybe a poster if you're lucky.
Exactly. But Chord envisions something entirely different. He talks about partnering with orange freelancers, like a specific woodworker friend of his named Rusty, to manufacture these boxes out of beautiful yet affordable materials like cocoa wood sourced from the Philippines.
And the contents of the box are designed to be a multi-sensory journey into the artist's specific vision. He details including custom 3D printed artifacts, mentioning a prototype created by an orange freelancer named Major Cardin.
He wants physical, high-quality lyric booklets printed by dedicated enthusiasts. He even envisions collaborating with local florists to design custom potpourri or floral arrangements that physically smell like the mood of the album.
It's incredible. You might find vintage Viewmasters, embroidered patches, custom pins, or even small quilts. It is about creating total physical immersion.
But let me play the role of the skeptical green investor for a second. This sounds like an incredibly expensive art project.
It does.
You were talking about coordinating woodworkers, 3D printing specialists, florists, studio engineers, and distribution networks for a single album release. How does anyone actually make a living here? How do you prevent the label from going bankrupt or the artist from being exploited to cover all these bespoke manufacturing costs?
The answer lies in what is arguably Chord's most revolutionary and legally complex concept, the 1/6 revenue split.
Okay, lay this out for us.
He completely throws out traditional music industry accounting, which is notoriously opaque, and basically designed to keep artists in perpetual debt to the label. And he replaces it with a rigid, transparent fraction.
The net income of every single digital album sold is divided into 6 perfectly equal slices.
Let's walk through the exact math of this simulation because it changes everything. Let's imagine a Golden Sounds album launches, and after the initial platform and operational costs are cleared, it generates $60,000 in pure net profit.
Okay, 60 grand net.
Under the 1/6 model, that $60,000 is sliced into 6 $10,000 payouts. Slice 1 goes directly and immediately to the yellow artist who conceptualized and performed the music, 10 grand.
Love it.
Slice 2, $10,000 goes to Golden Sounds, the label, to fund ongoing administrative overhead.
Makes sense.
Slice 3, $10,000 goes into a pool distributed among the green investors, who provided the seed capital to rent the studio and buy the cocoa wood.
So the investors get a real return.
Yes. Slice 4, $10,000 goes to the dedicated distribution and marketing teams who push the album to the public.
Okay, we're at 40,000.
Slice 5, $10,000 pays the contracted recording studio and the music production contractors. Chord specifically mentions individuals like Austin Perkins at the 111 studio.
Awesome. And the last slice.
Slice 6, $10,000 is distributed among all the other contracted Kaleidocloud colors involved in the project. The 3D printer, the woodworker, the florist, the graphic designer who made the lyric book.
That is mathematically beautiful, because if you think about the psychological and economic shift that creates it, is staggering.
It really is.
In the traditional model, a session bassist gets paid a flat $300 fee for the day, and they go home. If the album goes platinum, they never see another dime. But under the 1/6 model, you inherently build an absolute army of highly motivated marketers.
Exactly. You completely eliminate the adversarial relationship that defines modern entertainment contracts.
The orange freelancer operating the 3D printer for Slice 6 wants that album to sell millions of copies because they get a fractional cut of every single sale.
Right. And the sound engineer in Slice 5 is hyping the album on all their social channels,
Hmm.
pushing it to everyone they know because their residual income is directly tied to its success.
You don't have to force anyone to market the product. Everyone is financially incentivized to ensure the project reaches maximum velocity. It is the ultimate localized manifestation of mutual fulfillment.
It aligns the disparate motivations of capital, labor, and creative vision into a single vector. But Chord's ambitions don't stop at redefining digital networking and music distribution.
Of course not. Why stop there?
He pushes the blueprint even further out, aiming to bridge the gap between this purely digital ecosystem and the physical reality of the users.
Which brings us to the most sci-fi element of the pitch, Kaleidocladus.
Kaleidocladus, which Cord readily admits sounds a bit like a medical condition, and he notes he is open to renaming it. But it's his conceptualization of a city in the cloud.
This is meant to elevate the Kaleidocloud network beyond a flat 2D interface of menus and search bars. I picture this like a massive, interactive digital monopoly board.
Yeah, he envisions a potentially VR navigable virtual city where pink consumers can physically or virtually walk around. They can stroll down virtual boulevards, discover new purple brands, and interact with 3D digital storefronts.
It's like an early iteration of a spatial internet concept. And the economic brilliance here is that the Brickbox studio can sell and lease digital real estate within Kaleidocladus.
Right. A virtual storefront located on the high-traffic boardwalk of the digital city would command a higher lease price than one tucked away on Baltic Avenue.
This creates an entirely new, highly scalable revenue stream for the parent company, while offering Purple businesses a completely unique, immersive way to showcase their products to a global audience.
But Cord is fundamentally a builder. He knows that human beings cannot survive purely in a digital cloud. He grounds this high-tech virtual ambition with a stunning vision for a physical headquarters in the real world.
Oh, this part is so cool. He spends a significant portion of the source material discussing his desire to redeem the historic Lemp Brewery in St. Louis, Missouri.
The Lemp Brewery is a massive, sprawling, historically complex, and somewhat infamous property. The reason Cord is so magnetically drawn to this specific location is architectural.
The complex literally features massive brick silos. It perfectly mirrors the vision he received in the Black Box Theater back in 2010.
Exactly. The brick silos represent the unified church, pointing upward. He looks at this currently abandoned, run-down industrial space, which right now mostly houses a few random offices and ghost tour groups.
And he sees the physical heart of the sparkbeacon.
He envisions transforming those brick silos into state-of-the-art Golden Sounds recording studios, collaborative orange workspaces, and a bustling, tangible community hub where the digital connections made on Kaleidocloud manifest in physical reality.
It reminds me so heavily of Walt Disney's original untainted concept for EPOT.
Oh, that's an interesting parallel.
Yeah, most people don't realize this, but Walt Disney never wanted EPP2 to be a theme park with rides. EPP2 stood for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow.
Right.
Disney wanted to build a living, breathing, functional city where real people actually lived and worked, constantly testing and demonstrating the latest technological innovations to the world.
And Cord's vision for the Lemp Brewery headquarters feels like an economic and spiritual EPEC odd. A physical sanctuary that proves the mathematical algorithms of mutual fulfillment actually work in the real world.
It's a flagship demonstration of the concept. However, Cord also possesses a keen sociological awareness. He recognizes that the nature of modern work is increasingly decentralized.
People do not want to be tethered to a single geographic location, even one as innovative as a redeemed brewery.
Yes. He explicitly taps into the cultural zeitgeist surrounding fan life. You look at YouTube or Instagram, and millions of people are buying Sprinter vans, converting them into tiny homes, and hitting the road.
Instead of fighting this massive cultural shift and trying to force all his orange freelancers and red employees into cubicles in St. Louis, Cord actively embraces the wanderlust.
He proposes the creation of specific travel teams.
These would be cohorts of remote contractors, creatives, and sales teams who travel the country or even the world in their converted vans. Because the underlying infrastructure of Kaleidocloud is digital, these teams can explore and live freely without sacrificing their economic utility.
They stay deeply connected to the network. They're funneling data, closing deals, and designing assets from a national park in Utah or a beach in Florida.
And crucially, through the broader Brickbox Studio framework, They remain connected to their faith communities for spiritual and emotional support.
It's a profound acknowledgement that humans have an innate need for adventure and freedom, and an economic system shouldn't crush that need, it should fund it.
It creates a symbiotic relationship between total geographic freedom and structural economic stability.
So let's take a collective breath and zoom out to recap the sheer awe-inspiring scope of what we have just unpacked today in this deep dive, because the origin point of all of this is what makes it so compelling.
It really is.
We started with a guy, Cord Schnackenberg, sitting in a dimly lit room with his toddler. He is utterly exhausted, staring down the barrel of a 9-hour shift making chicken sandwiches, feeling the crushing weight of his own wasted potential.
And instead of simply resigning himself to that reality or, writing a bitter social media post, he channels that intense frustration into mapping out a comprehensive molecular level dismantling and rebuilding of modern macroeconomics.
He designs a parent company to hold the philosophical vision. He architects KaleidoCloud, replacing the passive, extractive search models of Google and LinkedIn with an active matchmaking algorithm designed for holistic compatibility.
He completely re-engineers the math of recruiting and capital investment to eliminate parasitic middlemen.
He invents Golden Sounds, a revolutionary music label that leverages physical craftsmanship and a 1/6 revenue split to turn gig workers into equity-holding partners.
He imagines a VR city, a physical headquarters, and a historic brewery, and fleets of travel teams roaming the globe.
It is a meticulously detailed blueprint engineered with a single overriding objective to guarantee that human potential is never systematically wasted again.
And it leaves us with an incredibly profound question to grapple with. We are living in an era where the massive tech giants, the Googles, the Metas, the LinkedIns, are facing unprecedented global scrutiny.
Yeah, they are increasingly viewed not as tools of empowerment, but as extraction engines that treat their users as mere data points to be mined for advertising revenue.
So what would actually happen to the global economy if a platform emerged and successfully made mutual fulfillment its unbreakable algorithmic core?
It challenges our fundamental assumptions about where innovation originates. Could the next great economic revolution, the system that finally aligns human value with capital efficiency, come not from a billionaire venture capitalist in Silicon Valley,
But from a weary, visionary guy in Missouri who simply refused to accept that a lose-lose economy was the best humanity could achieve?
what happens when the X-ray machine of modern economics is finally recalibrated? When we stop looking at muddy waters and algorithmic dead ends and start seeing the actual, highly capable human beings trapped underneath it all?
That's the question we want you to ponder.
We want to thank you so much for joining us on this massive, expansive deep dive here at Ponder Inc. It is a staggering amount of theory to process, but we hope it encourages you to look at your own skills, your own unmet needs, and rethink how your talents could be connected to the world around you.
Keep analyzing the systems you interact with.
And until next time, keep diving deep.